Take a moment here. Bring a hand on the heart, a hand on the belly. And we'll just take a couple of breaths before we start. So see if you can breathe in a way where you fill up your bottom hand before your top hand. So the top hand is really just topping off the breath, but the majority of your breath is moving down into the lower abdomen, into the waist, into the lower back. And then as you exhale, the upper hand kind of settles first, and then the breath empties down into the belly. So many of us have been just in this constant state of the sympathetic nervous system just being in fight or flight or freeze. And so when we have that stress response, we tend to breathe really high up into the chest because the lower belly muscles are engaged, just to have us ready to either run away from a threat or kind of curl up into a ball. So just the act of intentionally relaxing through the belly and moving the breath low can help to bring your nervous system back to a neutral state. And maybe you can keep that breath without your hands there. And we're going to start with the left leg, the left lower leg. So we're just going to move. We're going to bring the ball, or you can use your fingers for this if you don't have a ball. But we're going to bring it right to the front of the ankle. And we're going to imagine that you could use the ball to kind of pull all of the muscle and the tissue up the front of that lower leg. So you have your shin bone, and you're moving just to the outside, the pinky side of the foot of that shin bone. So we're just going to trace that muscle. You can feel that muscle flex under your fingers if you just flex at the ankle. So when you flex the ankle, you'll feel that muscle harden, and then it'll relax as you bring the foot down. So what we're going to do is just pull in, starting at the ankle, and we're going to lift and lower the foot as we draw the ball up the front of the leg. And even though you're kind of crouched over here, see if you can still breathe where your inhale fills low belly first, and then you kind of fill up into the chest. This making sense? And you'll inevitably come to a spot along the front of the shin, and with everything that we're going to do, where things feel like a little, you might feel like a little burning type of sensation, or maybe it's just more interesting. We could look at it that way. And so you can go really slow through those parts, give them a little bit more attention. And so make sure you're really lifting and lowering the foot. Make that action as big as you like. And you can get right up into kind of underneath the kneecap, that little area right underneath the kneecap, and just kind of give a little massage into there. I think we will do just like a little thing on the foot, the top of the foot. So you can stand on something. If you have a ball, you're going to put your left foot on the ball. If you don't have a ball, this is where you could use a pill bottle or whatever you're working with, a candle, I don't know. And you're just going to use your other foot to then drape the tissue of the standing foot down. I'm holding onto a wall for support. And you're just kind of imagining that you could mold your foot into the shape of the ball. And if you didn't put on any lotion, this is going to be more interesting. Take a big breath down into your lower belly. Exhale all the way. And when you feel like you've kind of found the whole top of the foot, you can sit back down and we'll do the other side. I really want to have enough time to really take a long time on the back. So we're just going to kind of do a quick draw up and then we'll lay on our backs. So same thing on the other leg. You're just pulling in right at the front of the ankle. There's this really thick band of fascia called a retinaculum, like right there at the front of the ankle. So you can give that spot a nice kind of slow hold. And then imagine again that you're just pulling all of that tissue up the front of the leg as you lift and lower the foot like you're using like one of those pedals on the old school sewing machines. And you might notice that one side is very different than the other. This is good. I don't see anyone grimacing. You're all still breathing. We had I grew up in a family of 4, and we had this big, ridiculous, we called it the Bullet. It was this silver van. It wasn't like a caravan. It was just like this, it looked like a Bullet. It was this giant van. And I slammed my shin getting into it so many times. So if you have any scar tissue right along the front of that shin bone, it might feel kind of like a burning sensation as you move through that tissue. And those are good areas to give extra attention. And then a little bit right below the kneecap. Take a big breath into your lower belly. Exhale, let it out, and we'll stand on that foot. And if you think about the connections that run from all of the muscles and the tissue along the front side of the body, it's all connected. So if during stress you tend to kind of curl up into a ball a bit, opening up any part of the front line of the body will bring some relief. This is not my favorite thing. So if you're thinking that, you're not alone. Let's take one more big breath into the belly. And exhale. Okay. So come back down. You could use, for the next part, you could use 2 balls. If you have the tune-up balls and they come in their little sack, you could use that, or you could use a sock to connect 2 tennis balls. If you don't have 2 balls, you can use a block. You might even prefer a block for this. So it just depends, kind of play around. We're gonna work into the tops of the thighs. I actually really love using a block for this because the block stays put, and then you get this really nice kind of dragging action along the front of the thighs, which can be great if you have issues with your knees. So up to you, the action will be the same. We're gonna start with either the balls or the block right above the knee. You can come down onto your forearms. Can you guys see me? Okay. Your other leg, so it doesn't, I'll just cue leg on the block, other leg. So your other leg can be down on the floor for support, or you can tuck it behind the leg on the block, which will bring a little bit of extra pressure. And we're just gonna gently rock forward and backward. Doing your best to breathe. If it feels like too much at any point to hold your chest up, just put some pillows underneath your chest so that your arms don't have to work so hard. It's totally fine. And then let yourself kind of roll a bit from side to side. And as you roll, especially if you're on a block, you'll likely feel the individualized kind of slips of your thigh muscles. And you might find an area that's more interesting than the rest. If you find one of those areas, you can stay there, glide a little bit more front to back. Try not to hang out on the IT band because that's just gonna hurt and it's not gonna do much for you. And then see if you can bend and then straighten the leg. So bending at the knee. And then you're gonna walk it back. So you're now in the upper half of the thigh, and we'll just do the same thing. And you're trying to breathe in a way where you're letting your whole body know that you're in a safe place. And so remember, when we're safe, we tend to breathe long and low into the lower belly. And bend and straighten the knee. Take a break before we switch sides. So when you feel like that leg is complete and there's no rush, you can kneel back. You can sit cross-legged as well, but I like to kneel because I just really feel the difference in kneeling in what that did to the first side compared to the second side. Any questions? Okay, let's do the other side. So block or balls right above the knee. And you're gliding forward and backward. And you're breathing. And then see if it's possible to bend and then straighten the knee. I'm jealous of the foam blocks that I'm seeing right now. They're much nicer for this than the cork. When you feel like that first spot on the thigh is good, then move higher up. And you'll just do the same exact thing. So just kind of rocking forward and backward, exploring the sensation by rocking side to side. And we're not really, breaking up any tissue. It's not like when you pound out a chicken breast or something, but we're just letting the body know that we're paying attention. So take your time, keep breathing here. I keep a tennis ball in my bed, and I'll do this if I can't sleep, because there's something about stimulating the nerves in the tops of the thighs that is really relaxing. I don't know if you guys, it doesn't feel that way while you're doing it, but then after. Okay, so now you can either take, if you have a Yamuna ball or a Coregeous ball, or take a blanket. Even though I have the balls, sometimes I actually prefer just using a blanket. And so you want to roll it up so that you have something that's about the size of a Nalgene water bottle, a little smaller than a football. So like something about this size. And then we're going to lie face down, and that's going to go right in the lower belly. So above the pubic bone, below the navel. And we'll do similar to what we did with the thigh on the block. Just kind of rock from side to side to start. So you'll gently sway your hips from side to side. And then one leg at a time. So come to center. You're going to tuck your right toes under, lift the right knee up, and just reach that leg back just a bit. So feel like your right leg is trying to drag you back like a ½ inch, and then relax the right leg. And then we'll do the same thing on the left leg. So you're just tucking the toes under, lifting the knee, and sliding back a bit. And hopefully what you feel is that the blanket feels like not only is it pushing in and up towards the spine, but it's also starting to feel like it's dragging a bit up towards the heart. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the nice thing about the blanket is it gives you this really tactile focus point where you can send your breath. So as you inhale, breathe nice and long and slow, fill up all around the blanket. Feel the lower back spread. And then as you exhale, you're doing your best to relax the muscles of the abdomen so that the blanket can sink in a little deeper. And if you haven't done this before, or you've been really stressed lately, or you haven't done it recently, what you might feel is a lot of resistance and this kind of like gut reaction to tense up the belly muscles and try to push the blanket out. And so your job is going to be, how do you override that? By using your breathing to remind your system that everything's okay. So these long, slow inhales, long, slow exhales. You're going to slide your right leg out to the side into a half frog position. So the knee will come out horizontal from the hip. And that should shift your weight so that the blanket's pressing more deeply into left low belly. And you're just going to bend the left knee so the foot is pointing towards the ceiling. And then draw some really slow circles with that left foot. How does the sensation change as you move your foot in a big circle? You can change directions. You can sync up your breathing with the movement. So maybe your inhale draws one half of the circle and the exhale draws the other half. And then let the left leg rest down. Slide the right leg back. Bend the left knee into half frog. And then once that right side settles a bit more onto the blanket, we're going to bend the right knee and we'll do the same thing. So nice big slow circles with the shin. And then change directions. And so some of the muscle and the tissue that we're working into releasing here are connected right up into your diaphragm, your primary breathing muscle. And so if we can release some tension from the lower belly, from the abdomen, it might make it easier for you to exhale. So it might allow for your diaphragm to more easily release up to empty the lungs, which should just feel good. You can release that right leg down, extend the left leg back. Take one more really big breath. Fill right up into the blanket. And then at the very top of your inhale, go ahead and hold and tense up the belly. So like you're trying now to push the blanket away. You're trying to resist the blanket. Hold the breath one more second and then exhale, completely relax. Let the exhale go, relax the belly, let the blanket really sink in. And then slide yourself back like an inch. So the blanket's just gonna be a little higher and we're just gonna do that same thing, just a big breath. And then firm up. And then exhale and relax completely. And then we're gonna come off the blanket. Everybody good? Just checking you guys, okay. So you also might feel like a little bit like this. Maybe because you're not at your usual workspace, if you're working from home, also the stress, all of it. So we're gonna work into the outer chest muscles, so the pec muscles. And we'll do it with our hands first, and then we'll do something on the block, and you can continue working with your hands if you don't have a ball. So find your sternum, find the center of your chest, your breastbone, and then feel the inner edges of your collarbones. So we're just gonna kind of trace from the collarbone, trace underneath the collarbone all the way over to where you get like a hard stop. So you start to get into that upper arm. And then you're gonna come to that hard stop where the collarbone kind of ends, and then you're gonna trace from there down into your armpit. So from the inner underside of the collarbone wide, so you can't really go any further, and then you're going to dive down in towards the armpit. And just do the other side, so you kind of set yourself up with a map with your fingers first. So inner underside of the collarbone, and you're going to slide wide. And then dive down. Now, it might be plenty to do this sitting up with your fingers. You can do this up against a wall with the ball, or you can do it lying face down on a ball. With or without the block. So you set the ball up. Whether you're at the wall or lying face down, the arm that you're gonna work, the ball, let's start on the right side. That'll just make it easier for me. Okay, so we're starting under the right collarbone. You're gonna have your right arm in like a goalpost position. Don't feel like you have to hang out here and hold your head up the whole time. So you can always support your head with a blanket. Or you can let the head just rest. And with the elbow down, we're going to start to work the ball from the breastbone out wide towards the armpit. And when you get to the point where you can't go wider and you'd start to dive down towards the armpit, you're just going to stop there, keeping the elbow down on the mat. See if any amount you could lift your wrist up off the floor. Not your knuckles, but your wrist. And it might be like a tiny, tiny movement. You can do this with the ball on the block as well. You just kind of got to adjust so that it's everything else is kind of clear of the block. So it would look like this. So you'd have the ball right into that spot where you're about to dive down in towards the armpit. And then you're trying to see if you can lift the wrist higher than the elbow. So it's a small movement. Wiggle around, can wiggle the ball in towards your armpit once you've found that movement a couple times, and then we'll just do the other side. Is this making sense? So maybe if I face you guys too, it'll be easier. So you'll start with the ball in that under collarbone, outer breastbone, and you'll just slide it over. And when you get to the place where you can't slide wider and it's time to dive down towards the armpit, I find it helpful to use a block. That way you can keep it clear of any breast tissue. And then the ball will be in that spot, right where the collarbone and the armpit meet. And you'll just see, is it possible to lift the wrist, lift the hand higher than the elbow? And this is probably a hard movement for most of us to do. So we're asking some of these muscles in the upper back to do something that they're maybe not used to. And we're asking them to counteract the tight muscles in the outer chest that tend to roll the shoulders forward and towards each other. And these aren't like big active muscles. So it can be really, if you're feeling like this is really hard, you're not alone. And really what we're just trying to do is teach the body that there's a different option. Wiggle around a bit as you'd like. And when you feel like you've done enough exploring there, roll over onto your back. So if you don't have two balls or something to put in the upper back, you can use the tight rolled blanket and just breathe and let the blanket move down the back as we move with the balls. That will be okay. But everyone else, if you have the balls, they're gonna go right in the upper back on either side of the spine, right below the neck. And you're just gonna rock yourself back enough so that you catch them, so that they don't slide out. If this hurts the neck, because this is going to bring your upper back and neck into a passive back bend, you can always put a folded blanket under the back of the head. And we'll all start out with just knees bent, feet on the floor. And let's find a couple rounds of breath where we fill the belly first. Slowly turn your head to the left. Relax your jaw. And slowly bring your head back to center. Slowly turn your head to the right. And then return to center. Inhale, take your arms up towards the ceiling. Palms facing forward. Really reaching up so your shoulder blades spread wide. And then exhale, take your arms alongside your ears any amount. So if it bothers the shoulders, back off. And then inhale, reach back up towards the ceiling. You're gonna hug your chest and gently rock a little bit from side to side. Maybe lift the hips. Rock a bit from side to side. And then keeping the hips lifted, you're gonna roll back about an inch. So imagine the balls pushing the tissue of the back down your spine. And then lower the hips back down. Lower the arms down. Your knees bent and your feet on the floor. You're gonna rock your pelvis forward. You're gonna tip the pelvis forward. So think about your pubic bone reaching forward away from you and your low back arches more. And then you're gonna rock your pelvis back. So your pubic bone will rock back toward the navel and the lower back will move closer to the mat. And it will maybe firm up on the floor here. So we're gonna inhale, rock the pelvis forward. And exhale, rock the pelvis back. So the ball should be gently rocking up and down your spine. And then keep the hips neutral. Maybe lift them up. You can skip the hip lift if this feels like too much. You're gonna inhale and reach the arms up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, reach the arms alongside the ears any amount. Inhale, reach back up to the ceiling. This time with the other arm on top, hug your chest. And then gently rock from side to side. Lower the hips for a moment. And see if you can then shift from side to side. So you're moving your whole shoulder girdle left and right. So you can imagine the balls tracing little horizontal lines in the upper back. Keeping the hips down, take the arms up alongside the ears and then sweep them down by your sides like you're making a big snow angel. Inhale, sweep them back up alongside the ears. And then exhale, bring the arms back down by your sides. And we're just gonna slowly turn the head to the left. And then to the right. Hug the chest, lift the hips, slide back another inch. Lower the hips back down. Arms can come down and then we'll inhale and tip the pelvis forward, pubic bone reaching away from you. And then exhale, tip the pelvis back. So we're doing an anterior tilt on the inhale. And a posterior tilt on the exhale. Let's do one more round of breath like that. Inhale, tilt forward. And exhale, tip back. Maybe lift the hips. Inhale, take the arms up. Really reach up. And then exhale, take the arms back. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hug your chest. And rock from side to side. Lower the hips down. And see if you can shift left and right. Keeping the hips down, let's make a snow angel. So we're going to take the arms up first as you inhale. Exhale, take them back. Inhale, sweep them down by your sides. and then sweep them back up. The arms can return down by your sides. Hug your chest. Lift the hips, and let's roll back another 1.5 inches. So I am approaching the back bottom ribs. I'm like, probably like a good 1.5 or 2 inches below my shoulder blades. Inhale, tip the pelvis forward. And exhale, tip the pelvis back. Hug your chest. Lift the hips. And then slide your hips from side to side. Lower the hips back down. Inhale, reach the arms up. And take a big stretch back. Swim the arms back down by your sides. We're going to turn the head to the right. And turn the head to the left. Inhale, tip the pelvis forward. Exhale, tip the pelvis back. We're going to hold in this little back tilt of the pelvis. So with the balls where they are, your lower back is probably not touching the floor, but you should feel like a bit more pressure on the balls. And we're going to walk the right foot in closer to the left. So it's really more in the middle of the body. And then gently bring the left knee in towards the chest any amount. Bring the left foot back down. We'll do that one more time. So let's inhale and bring the left knee in towards the chest. And then exhale, bring it back down. Bring the left foot to replace the right foot on the ground. We'll inhale and bring the right knee in towards the chest. And exhale, release it. And again, inhale, bring it in. And exhale, release. Your feet hip width again. Bring your hands behind your head. And we're going to do the tiniest little curl up, looking at your knees. Take a breath in, and then exhale, release. Inhale, curl up. And exhale, release. Slide back another 1.5 inches. So if the balls are not in the backs of the waist, slide down enough so that they are. So you're right below your back bottom rib cage. You're above your hips. We're going to inhale and tip the pelvis forward. And exhale, tip the pelvis back. Maybe lift the hips a bit. Inhale, tip the pelvis forward. And then exhale, tip the pelvis back. This time, as you tip the pelvis back, lift the hips, and you're just going to sway your butt from side to side. So if you could imagine that you were doing this on a glass surface, and you were going to try to use your butt to shine the glass, you're just going to kind of like slide your butt from side to side. And so the balls will be rocking left and right into the backs of the waist. You might have to occasionally push them back so that they're right along the sides of the spine. And when your hips lift up to one side, as they start to dive back down to change sides, I want you to turn your hips a bit towards the side that you're swinging your hips to. So as your hips come up to the right, as you start to bring them back down to turn left, or to slide left, turn your hips to the left. So you're just kind of allowing the balls to dig in a little closer to the spine. Does that make sense? You can prop yourself up onto your forearms. So you might be able to like look over and see. So I'm just kind of rocking the hips from side to side and then kind of digging in like there's more of a downward action as you change sides. Let's take one more breath like that as you do that. And then you can release. We're just going to use one ball now. So we're still working with that ball in the back of the waist. We'll start on the left side. And it might be plenty with the ball on the floor, hips on the floor. But if you want to get in a little bit deeper, you can set up so that you have a block. If you bring the block under your hips, but then slide it up and slightly over to the left. So it's really kind of hanging out in that back left waist. And then you can put the ball in between you and the block. And then we'll just do that same action of kind of shining the floor with your butt. But really focus on the left side now. And I want you to imagine, as you move your hips to the left, that you're letting the ball try to creep in to the left side of the spine. So what if that ball could really nuzzle into all of the tissue lining the left side of the spine? And the next time the ball moves in towards the left side of the spine, go ahead and stay there for a moment. So your hips will be turned a little to the left. You're trying to release your weight so that ball could nuzzle in to the left side of the spine. And you could stay here. You might let the left knee open up to the left. And you can kind of play around with opening and closing with the left knee. You might extend the left leg straight and come onto the pinky side of the foot. And with the left leg straight and on the pinky side of the foot, can you imagine dragging the whole inseam of the leg away from you? So you're going to push down with the pinky side of the foot into the floor and think about lengthening really from your left groin all the way down through that left inner arch. As if you were trying to pull the whole body away from the ball. Let's take 3 more big breaths. And again, this might be enough. You could stay right here, but you might play around with drawing the left knee in towards the chest and then bringing the foot down just to hover. So my intention with this is trying to kind of sneak in to your left psoas muscle from the back and the side. And that muscle is very intimately related to your breathing and to your stress response. So I know for me, especially on my left side, that's where things start to get really jammed up when I'm stressed and there's kind of nowhere to go with it. All right, let's take a break before we do the other side. So if you have the block underneath your hips, take it out. If you have the ball under there, take it out. Just come into constructive rest for a moment. And then we'll set up for the right side. So you could have the ball behind the right waist, close to the spine. So below the rib cage, above the hip, and pretty close to the spine. And that can be all elevated on a block or just on your mat. And then you're just gonna shine the floor with your butt, as you would do. Seeing if you can move in a way where you let the ball try to slide up nice and close to the right side of the spine. Maybe the right knee can open and close. Maybe you can straighten the right leg, coming onto the pinky side of the foot. And the foot will press down while the inseam of the right leg tries to drag you forward. And you might even imagine that there's a connection between the right side of the spine, where the ball is snuggling up into, and the inseam of the right leg, like that was just one long muscle. It lines the spine and the inner thigh. Might be enough to stay there. Maybe bring the right knee in towards the chest and lower. And you can play around with what feels good. Does it feel good to inhale the knee in? And then exhale it down. Or maybe you exhale in and inhale down. This muscle is, or this whole area can be really tender because it's often been gripping for so long and it's just so tired. Let's come off the ball, come off the block, come into constructive rest. You can bring your hands onto your lower belly. before we move into Shavasana, you take your balls and you're just going to bring them right up to the base of the skull. So right where your neck and the back of your head meet at that occipital ridge, that little area where the skull kind of juts out a bit at the back of the head. You're going to hold the balls in place and just turn your head from side to side. Relax your jaw. Nod your head yes. Draw some circles with your nose. Take one more long breath in, holding at the top of the inhale. And then exhale through your mouth. And we'll take a Shavasana here, extending your legs long. You can cover up if you'd like. Support the back of the head with a blanket if you'd like. And take a moment with your eyes closed to feel all of the parts of your body that are resting on the floor. And we're going to feel into those touch points from the bottom to the top. So notice where your feet land. Can they land a little deeper? Notice how your legs are held. Feel the weight of the hips. Notice where your hands and arms touch down, your shoulders. Feel the support at the back of the rib cage, the upper back, the middle back. The back of the head. Is it possible to release a bit more of your weight into all of those touch points? Notice which of your nostrils is more open. And when you feel ready to move, you can roll over towards that side. Let your head rest on your bottom arm. And then press your way up to a seat. Bring your dominant hand over your chest and you can cover it with your non-dominant hand. And I turned you off mute just so that we could hum together. So let's take a big breath in. That went by way too fast. Thank you guys so much. Roll back into Shavasana. Or you think if you want to say hi, you can say hi. We needed another at least half hour. So yeah, that's good to know for next time. How do you feel?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel so much better. You guys, okay, good. So we'll do it again and we'll just do it longer. Yeah?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Enjoy your Sunday. Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mwah.